"Sir, you have to leave. Right now." Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking because she knew what was about to happen. Hours earlier, Maya Williams had stepped through the staff entrance of La Lumiere with the same quiet prayer she whispered every shift. "Let tonight be calm. Let nobody yell at me. Let me make it home before Mom's meds run out." Then he walked in, Christopher Langford, tall, composed, with a calm that surrounded him like tailored armor, the kind of man whose footsteps didn't echo, they commanded. He slid into a corner booth in Section 7 VIP territory. Maya approached with water, her posture trained, her smile gentle but controlled. "Good evening, Mr. Langford. Welcome to La Lumiere." He nodded, barely looking up, focused. He was here to close a $1 billion acquisition, rumored to change the future of AI in medicine. Maya knew because she'd read the article while sitting beside her mother's hospital bed, tracing each word with a tired but hopeful finger. Tonight, he was about to be touched by something very bad. She headed toward the bar to grab a bottle of sparkling water. That was when she heard it, the low, urgent whisper just around the coat room corner. "He'll sign tonight. He thinks the protocol is secure. Monday, we trigger the flip. Data transfers overseas before he even realizes the breach." A man in a charcoal suit, smooth voice, confident, dangerous. Maya froze. That tone, the smug certainty she'd heard it before. When her mother's nonprofit was swallowed in a strategic restructuring and health coverage vanished overnight. When the woman from HR smiled pity but delivered poison. Another voice answered the man, sharper, nervous. "What if he catches on?" "He won't," the first man hissed. "He trusts us, and trust is leverage." There was a clink, a rustle of paper. Maya leaned too far, elbow grazing a shelf. Her hand flinched. A wine flute slipped from her grasp and shattered against the tile. The sound cut the air like a gunshot. Both men whipped toward the doorway. Panic surged through her chest. "Who's there?" one barked. Maya bolted. Her shoes skidded on the polished floor as she sprinted toward the kitchen. Behind her, footsteps thundered sharp, angry, male. "Hey, stop!" Servants never ran here. Running drew eyes, and eyes drew consequences. But survival didn't care about rules. She turned the corner too fast and crashed into a wall. It was Mr. Hawthorne, the manager. Mid-50 seconds, stiff tuxedo, a face carved from granite and superiority. He caught her by the shoulders, nearly dropping his tablet. The two suited men slowed, staring. Maya ducked her head, praying they hadn't seen her face. Hawthorne shot them an apologetic smile. "So sorry, gentlemen. New staff. Won't happen again." "Nah." They grunted and walked off. Maya's breath trembled. She'd escaped, but not really. Hawthorne turned on her, voice low and venomous. "What kind of circus are you running inside your head? Running through the dining room like a—" He stopped himself, but his lip curled. "This isn't a fast food joint on the South Side, sweetheart. You want to work here, you act like you belong here." Maya swallowed hard. She'd heard that tone all her life. The one that didn't need to say black to mean it. I'm sorry, sir. You break one more piece of stemware, you're gone. One more scene, and you can take your attitude back to whatever neighborhood you crawled out of." His voice dipped further. "We can't have guests feeling unsafe. You understand me?" "Yes, sir," she whispered, eyes stinging. "Stand up straight, smile, pretend you have manners." "Yes, sir," and stop shaking. She couldn't. He walked away. Maya pressed her palm to the counter, breath catching in her throat. "You can't mess this up. You need this job. Mom needs medicine. Rent is due." But then, like a flash of lightning in a storm, came another thought. If someone had warned us before the hospital cut her insurance, if someone had spoken up. She peeked around the corner. The suited men were gone. The restaurant's hum returned, the clink of cutlery, low jazz, murmured deals of powerful men. And there sat Langford, calm as ever, unaware his kingdom was hanging like a thread above a blade. If she stayed silent, he'd lose everything. Her grandfather's words echoed, ones he'd spoken at the church picnic back when she still believed the world was fair. "Doing right ain't always safe, but it's always right." Maya's knees felt like water, her palms damp, her heart a terrified animal in a cage. Still, she walked toward Langford's table. He looked up, finally seeing her, really seeing her. "Sir," she whispered, leaning just close enough so only he could hear. You have to leave. Right now. He blinked, confused, curious. Excuse me? She steadied her voice. I know this is going to sound strange, but your business partner, he's going to betray you. Tonight. Shock flickered in his eyes, annoyance, suspicion, but also something else. A sliver of intuition, a man who didn't survive billion-dollar wars without learning to hear danger when it whispered. Why would you say that? He asked quietly. Maya swallowed. Because I overheard something. Because silence cost my family once, and I can't watch someone else fall. Langford stared at her, the world narrowing to two people, one powerful, one invisible, standing on the edge of a billion-dollar truth. She braced for the dismissal, the smirk, the humiliation. Instead, he leaned back slowly, eyes never leaving hers. And in that suspended moment, Maya Williams, waitress, caregiver, survivor, realized she had just altered the course of a powerful man's life. Whether she saved him or doomed herself, she didn't yet know. If you felt Maya's courage, give this story a like and comment where you're watching from. You might find someone right near you. For a moment, Christopher Langford said nothing. He studied Maya with the sharp, surgical stillness of a man used to reading contracts and people with absolute precision. The silence between them stretched like a tight wire, delicate and dangerous. Maya held her breath, afraid that even the sound of her lungs would betray her. Finally, he spoke, voice low. What exactly did you hear? She glanced over her shoulder, instinctively scanning the restaurant. Waitstaff floated past with perfect poise. A violinist in the corner adjusted her bow, oblivious to the shift in the air. The table next to them murmured about real estate in Aspen. Two men. One near the coat room. I heard them talking about flipping protocols, about moving data before Monday, about you signing something tonight and never seeing it coming. He frowned, setting down his phone. And you just happened to overhear this? I wasn't trying to, she replied. I dropped a glass. They were talking too loud. I shouldn't have listened. But I did. And I couldn't forget it. Langford leaned back slowly, folding his hands. You understand how this sounds, don't you? A server with no context overhearing half a sentence and jumping to conspiracy. Maya nodded, her fingers tightening on the edge of her apron. I know. I wouldn't believe me either. But you still told me. She met his gaze. Because it's not just a deal. It's people's jobs. Livelihoods. If what I heard is true, it's not just you who gets burned. It's everyone under you. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, a soft recalibration. She could see it, the slow internal accounting of risk, the calculations running in his mind like code. I need a name, he said finally. Who was speaking? She hesitated. I don't know exactly. One of them was tall, salt and pepper hair, designer suit. Spoke like he thought the room belonged to him. The other was younger, kept checking over his shoulder. Langford exhaled through his nose. That could describe half the men in his contact list. Still, her warning clung to him like static. Unearned. Unshakable. Maya took a cautious step back. I'm sorry if I overstepped. I just thought you should know. That's all. He didn't stop her as she turned and walked away, shoulders squared but trembling. Not from fear this time, but from the weight of having finally said it aloud. Back in the kitchen, Maya moved like she was underwater. The clang of pots, the bark of orders, the whirl of steam, all of it pressed in around her, muffled and distant. She dropped off empty plates, picked up fresh ones, but the world behind her eyes wouldn't let go. Christopher Langford. She had warned him, and he hadn't laughed. He hadn't dismissed her. He'd listened. Sort of. Williams, a voice snapped. Mr. Hawthorne again, red-faced and storming in from the dining room. What did you say to Mr. Langford? Maya froze. I just asked if he needed anything. Don't lie to me, he spat. I saw you whispering at his table like a gossiping teenager. I didn't. You think because you're cute and fresh-faced you can flirt your way into tips from billionaires? I wasn't flirting, sir. Don't interrupt me. Her mouth shut tight. Langford is the biggest client we've had all quarter. If he walks out unsatisfied because of some stunt you pulled, I will personally see to it that you're never hired in this city again. Are we clear? Maya nodded, biting the inside of her cheek so hard it tasted like metal. Say it. Yes, sir. We're clear. He glared at her a beat longer, then stormed off. Behind her, Julio, one of the dishwashers, mouthed, You okay? She forced a smile and nodded. But she wasn't okay. Not at all. She took 5 minutes in the locker room. Just 5. Enough to splash cold water on her face and breathe. Staring at her reflection, she whispered, You did the right thing. You did. But the doubt was creeping in. What if she had misunderstood? What if she'd cost herself the only job that kept her mother's medicine cabinet from going empty? She pulled out her phone and opened the hospital app. Her mom's heart meds were due for refill next week. No refill, no stability. No stability. No insurance. Maya wiped her face, tucked the phone away, and went back to work. Out in the dining room, Langford sat still, fingers tapping silently on the stem of his glass. Across from him, the seat remained empty. His business partner, Dean Mathers, was now 20 minutes late. That was unusual. Dean was many things, a snake, sometimes but never late. He prided himself on punctuality. The type of man who would rather reschedule than arrive 5 minutes off schedule. Langford picked up his phone and opened their text thread. Nothing new. Just a message from earlier that afternoon. Looking forward to wrapping this up tonight. His instincts prickled. He glanced toward the coat room, then at the kitchen, then back at the water glass Maya had filled. That girl, he didn't know her name. She hadn't given it. But there was something in her tone and urgency laced with experience. Not desperation, not ambition. Warning. And her eyes, he remembered, hadn't blinked when she spoke. She believed what she said. Or at least, she knew the cost of staying silent. He tapped his phone. No reply. He tapped again. Where are you? Still nothing. A quiet thought began to unfurl. What if she's right? He stood abruptly. His briefcase thumped against the leather seat as he grabbed it. He left a crisp 100 on the table, more than enough. Then he walked toward the exit, ignoring the startled glance of the maitre d'. Maya caught sight of him through the kitchen door. Their eyes met, briefly. She blinked. He gave a nod. Just once. Subtle. Not a thank you. Not yet. But not nothing. Outside, Langford slipped into the back seat of his black sedan and told the driver, Headquarters. Now. Back in the kitchen, Maya exhaled. He had left. She didn't know what that meant. Not yet. But it meant something. It meant she'd been heard. And for the first time in weeks, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she'd done one right thing in a world that so often asked her to stay quiet. The backseat of the car was silent, save for the faint hum of Chicago traffic and the occasional buzz from Christopher Langford's phone. He didn't answer the messages. Not yet. He stared through the tinted window as La Lumiere receded into the rear view, his mind spiraling through a million thoughts. None of them settled. Her words wouldn't leave him. Your business partner, he's going to betray you. Tonight. It should have sounded absurd. And it would have, if not for the strange synchronicity of details. Dean Mathers was never late, never vague, never left anything to chance. And yet tonight, he was both late and silent. That alone didn't prove treachery, but when paired with the waitress's hushed urgency, the odds began to tilt into unease. Langford adjusted the cuff of his shirt, more out of habit than need. His clothing, like everything else in his life, was tailored, controlled, intentional, but nothing about this evening was going to plan. Ida? He asked the driver. 7 minutes, sir. Langford nodded, distracted. His mind wasn't in the car, it was in the war room he'd designed 3 years ago at his company headquarters. A glass conference space tucked behind 3 layers of biometric security. No windows, no noise, just light, code, and decisions that shaped markets. That's where he'd go now. Where he'd open the files Dean had sent him and take another look this time, not as a partner, but as a skeptic. If you can't trust a man with your company, why did you trust him with your time? He thought bitterly. 3 floors underground, Langford entered the war room with a scan of his retina and a whispered code. Solace. The room lit up, pale blue. His assistant, Caleb, was already there, having been summoned by a single-word text. Pull everything. You okay, sir? Caleb asked, concern in his tone. Langford nodded once. Let's walk through the merger line by line. No assumptions. I want legal, financial, and cyber intel on every component Dean's team inserted. Caleb blinked. Something wrong? Maybe, maybe not. But I want to know who really stands to benefit if this deal closes. Caleb didn't ask further. He knew the drill. When Langford shifted from instinct to investigation, it meant something wasn't sitting right. And Langford's instincts were rarely wrong. Screens flickered to life, contracts projected across glass panels, maps of server transfers, protocol structures. All of it was there laid out like a patient under surgical light. Langford leaned in, reading the lines not with trust, but with suspicion. And there it was, page 42. A data clause. The backup server clause, Langford murmured, narrowing his eyes. It had seemed innocuous technical language buried under jargon, but upon closer inspection, it allowed Dean's team full administrative rights to Langford's AI infrastructure for 72 hours post-merge. No oversight, no restrictions, just control. Langford's mouth tightened. Why would he need that window? Caleb frowned. That's not standard. At all. Langford's phone buzzed. It was a text. Dean Mathers, running behind. We can reschedule if needed. Tomorrow afternoon? Langford stared at the screen. His pulse slowed. Cold clarity took over. The girl was right. Across the city, Maya stood by the back hallway of the kitchen, watching the buses arrive with dessert trays. Her fingers trembled slightly as she refolded napkins and polished spoons that didn't need polishing. No one had said anything to her since the encounter. Mr. Hawthorne had vanished into his office. The other staff avoided eye contact. The silence was almost worse than yelling. "Hey," Julio whispered as he passed with a tray. "You okay?" She gave a tight nod. He hesitated, then added, "That guy you warned? He left. Kinda fast." Her chest tightened. "Yeah?" Julio nodded. "Looked serious. Like, real serious." Maya turned her head away before the emotion showed. She didn't want gratitude. She didn't even expect belief. But something inside her unclenched at the thought that maybe, just maybe, Langford had taken her seriously. She returned to work, focused on every plate, every pour, every tiny detail that let her pretend she hadn't just detonated her entire life. Back in the war room, Langford stared at a map of global data centers linked to Dean's holding companies. 2 of them were flagged for investigation by a federal task force. Another shared a shell corporation with an overseas bidder Langford had previously declined. His stomach turned. The betrayal wasn't just possible, it was in motion. Langford closed the files. Caleb. Cancel all merger activity. Inform legal. To prepare for breach of intent proceedings. Caleb hesitated. Should we confront Dean first? Langford's voice was ice. We don't confront thieves, we expose them. He stood, eyes stormy. Also, he added, I want the name of the waitress at La Lumiere, the one who spoke to me. Caleb raised an eyebrow. Any reason? Langford's gaze was steady. Because I don't believe in angels, but tonight, I might have met one. No. Later that night, long after the last dessert was plated and the last guest had left, Maya sat alone in the locker room, staring at the photo taped inside her locker. It was old. A little faded her mother, and her younger sister on the steps of their apartment building. She looked about 15, all braids and bright eyes. That girl had believed she'd change the world. Somewhere along the way, the world had changed her instead. But tonight, she'd said something. She'd warned someone. She'd tried. Even if it didn't matter. Even if she lost her job tomorrow. She touched the edge of the photo. Daddy always said, she whispered, silence protects no one. Her shift was over. Her feet ached. Her body begged for rest. But in her chest, something glowed faint, defiant. She hadn't been silent. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like enough. Christopher Langford didn't sleep that night. Not because of jet lag, he'd crossed too many time zones in his career to be rattled by flight patterns. Not because of stress, he'd weathered lawsuits, media storms, and boardroom betrayals that would break lesser men. But because of a voice, a quiet one, shaky, almost hesitant. A voice that had no reason to matter, and yet had pierced deeper than any headline ever could. Your business partner, he's going to betray you. Tonight. That waitress Maya had been more than a messenger. She was a detonator. One gentle whisper, and Langford's perfect deal had come apart like sugar glass. He sat now in his penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, staring at the city lights with a tumbler of bourbon untouched in his hand. The files were spread out across the glass coffee table. His legal team was working through the night, unraveling every contract and clause Dean Mathers had touched. And the more they unraveled, the uglier it got. Dean hadn't just set him up to fail. He'd coordinated with rival buyers through shell corporations. If the deal had closed, Langford's AI infrastructure would have been gutted and repackaged before Monday morning. A decade of innovation gone, thousands of jobs vulnerable, and Langford's legacy poisoned. It was almost surgical, the way it had been planned. Langford's phone buzzed with a message from Caleb. Caleb, confirmed. 2 of Dean's satellite firms are under quiet review by the FTC. You dodged a bullet, sir. A big one. Langford didn't reply. He just stared at the screen, jaw set. He thought back to Maya's face. Not polished, not professional, but truthful. Not a trace of self-interest, just warning. And fear. She'd risked everything. For him, for someone she didn't even know. Why? He stood and paced to the window. The lake shimmered below, vast and dark and full of quiet power. Maybe that was why it haunted him. Not just the betrayal, not just the narrow escape, but the girl who gave it to him. At La Lumiere, the night staff had cleared out. Only a few remained to polish, mop, and prep for the next wave of perfection. Maya lingered in the back corridor, wiping down menus that no longer needed wiping. She'd stayed late on purpose. Not because she wanted to, but because going home meant sitting alone with uncertainty. Mr. Hawthorne had ignored her all night, which was somehow worse than yelling. She didn't know if she still had a job. She didn't know if Langford had believed her. She just didn't know. Julio passed by with a bucket of melting ice. Still here? He asked. Yup. Everything okay? She gave a lopsided smile. Define okay. He snorted softly and gave her shoulder a gentle pat. You've got guts, Maya. Whether or not it pays off, that counts. She appreciated that more than she could say. As she exited through the back alley, cold air kissed her skin. October in Chicago didn't pull punches. She zipped her jacket tight, feeling the chill all the way through her bones. She walked 3 blocks before her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, answered. Hello? Miss Williams? The voice asked, calm, measured, male. Yes? This is Caleb Moore. I work with Mr. Langford. She stopped walking. I'd like to schedule a time for you to meet with him, he continued. In person, if you're willing. Maya's stomach tightened. Is everything okay? He'd prefer to explain it himself, Caleb said. But I'll say this, he's very grateful. Maya blinked. He believed me? A pause. Then, he's seen the truth, and he knows where it started. She didn't reply. Caleb added, we can send a car. Tomorrow. Noon? She swallowed hard. Okay. Thank you, Miss Williams. Truly. When the call ended, she stared at her reflection in a dark store window. Her breath fogged the glass. Her reflection was tired, worn, but there was something else there now. A crack of light behind the fatigue. The next morning, Maya told her mother she had a meeting. Her mother, wrapped in layers of wool and blankets on the living room couch, gave her a long, slow look. You okay, baby? She asked, voice soft from years of illness and stronger from decades of wisdom. Maya hesitated. I think I might have done something good, but I don't know yet. Her mother smiled, fragile and full of pride. Then walk tall. Let the world catch up to you. Maya kissed her cheek, smoothed the blanket around her, and stepped out into the cold morning light. At exactly 12 p.m., a sleek black Lincoln pulled up in front of her building. The driver opened the door. Miss Williams? Yes. He nodded and gestured. Right this way. Inside the car. Leather seats cradled her like luxury she'd never known. Her fingers curled tightly around the strap of her thrift store purse. Her nails were clean but chipped. She'd done her best. The ride was silent except for the soft hum of jazz playing through hidden speakers. Downtown loomed, gleaming and untouchable. And then, the car turned into the private garage of Langford Tech. Caleb was waiting at the elevator. He offered a handshake. Pleasure to meet you. You too, Maya said softly. He pressed a code into a keypad. He's on the 28th floor. Just you and him. Her palms were sweating. As the elevator doors opened, she stepped inside and rose into a world not meant for her gleaming marble. Minimalist lighting. Walls that probably cost more than her apartment. When the doors opened again, he was there. Christopher Langford, no suit, just a gray sweater, slacks, and the same quiet authority as before, but this time, softer, human. He stood, extended his hand. "Thank you for coming." Maya stared at him. "You're welcome. Would you sit?" She did, carefully, unsure what to do with her hands. Langford sat across from her, studying her like a man seeing color after years of grayscale. "You saved my company," he said plainly. "But more than that, you saved my people, and you saved me from making the worst mistake of my career." Maya shook her head. "I didn't. I just overheard something." He smiled faintly. "And you chose to speak. You had every reason to stay silent. You risked your job, your safety." Her throat tightened. "I've stayed silent before," she said. "Didn't want to make that mistake again." Langford's voice was quiet. "You said something that stuck with me. That staying silent cost your family." She nodded, not trusting her voice. Langford leaned forward. "I want to help yours now, and not just with words." Maya didn't answer right away. She sat across from Christopher Langford in his sprawling office walls of glass, looking out over a shimmering Chicago skyline, and for the first time since stepping into this building, she didn't feel small. She felt out of place, yes, but not invisible. Langford's attention wasn't performative. He wasn't patronizing her, or thanking her like someone tips a server out of guilt. He was seeing her, and that, somehow, made it harder to breathe. "I want to help your family," he said again, his voice steady and sincere. "Financially, professionally, whatever's needed. But I don't want to offend you by assuming what that looks like." Maya shifted in her seat. Her fingers twisted the strap of her purse, the way she used to braid her sister's hair when they were kids, over, under, again and again, just to keep her nerves busy. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "That's okay," he replied. "There's no rush." "Oh." A pause stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just full, like neither of them wanted to be the first to look away. Finally, Maya spoke. "My mother," she began, her voice quiet, "worked at a nonprofit in Bronzeville for 22 years. Helped kids get free school supplies. Helped parents fill out FAFSA forms. It wasn't flashy, but it mattered. Until they got swallowed by a merger. A quiet one. Suddenly, she was redundant. Her health insurance ended the same week her heart medication ran out. Langford didn't interrupt. She tried to act strong, but I could see the fear in her eyes. And then I watched her break. Little by little. Not from illness, but from knowing the world didn't care. Maya paused, swallowing the rising lump in her throat. "I was in college then. Honors program, Dean's List. I dropped out a week later to pick up double shifts at a diner, because pills don't wait for degrees." Langford's jaw tightened, not at her but at the weight of the system she was describing, a weight he'd helped build, even if unintentionally. "Since then," she continued, "I've done everything. Waitressing, cleaning, filing, overnight, care shifts. I used to cry about it. But now I just breathe through it." She gave a tired smile. "People don't always see people like me. We're scenery. We're convenience." "Not anymore," Langford said, his voice rough. Maya blinked. "Miss Williams Maya," he corrected, gentler. "I want you to know that you weren't scenery. Not that night. And certainly not today." She looked down at her lap. "It's strange. I didn't plan to say anything. I just saw you sitting there, confident, trusting, and I thought, what if no one ever tells him? And you did," he said. "You told me, and it changed everything." He stood and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window, folding his arms. The lake stretched out like liquid steel beneath a sky heavy with October clouds. "I built this company from nothing," he said. "But somewhere along the way, it became about acquisitions and optics. I told myself I was doing good. Donating here, sponsoring there. But it's easy to throw money at problems and call it virtue. He turned back to her. You didn't throw anything. You spoke. That takes more courage than I've seen in most boardrooms. Maya exhaled slowly. There was something steadying about his presence, not just power, but presence. He wasn't distracted. He wasn't checking his phone. He was here. Truth is, she said, I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. When that glass broke, when they chased me. Langford's brows knit together. Chased? She hesitated. After I overheard them, Dean's men. I think I dropped a glass. They heard it. Came looking. I ran. Nearly got fired on the spot. Langford's face darkened. Did anyone threaten you? Not directly, but your manager treated me like I was dirt, like I was lucky to be allowed in the room. I'll speak to the restaurant owner personally, Langford said. No one who tries to do the right thing should be punished for it. Maya raised an eyebrow, half amused. Are billionaires allowed to get people fired over bad attitudes? Langford gave a half smile. Only when those bad attitudes risked the safety of their guests. Die, she chuckled softly, the tension easing just a little. It was the first real laugh she'd let out in days. He walked back to his desk and pulled a folder from a leather briefcase. I took the liberty of checking your employment record. You have no formal training in cybersecurity, but your notes from college, your sociology thesis on economic disenfranchisement was compelling, analytical, personal. Maya flushed. You read my thesis? I read everything about people I trust with sensitive information. Sensitive? She echoed. Langford opened the folder, revealing a page stamped confidential. Dean's sabotage wasn't just corporate. It was criminal. And you identified it before any analyst on my team. That means something. I'm not a professional, she said. You're observant, you're honest, you act under pressure. And frankly, you've saved me more than anyone on my payroll this year. He slid the folder toward her. I want to offer you a probationary role at Langford Tech. Part-time to start. In our community ethics division. Your job would be to evaluate how our corporate activity impacts real people. Not numbers. Lives. Maya stared at the folder like it might disappear. You'd be compensated fairly, he added. Benefits. Health coverage for your mother. We'll structure it around your schedule. She blinked hard, willing herself not to cry. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Just say yes, Langford replied. A beat of silence. And then Maya, voice trembling but sure, said, yes. The elevator doors whispered shut behind Maya as she descended from the 28th floor of Langford Tech, clutching the manila folder to her chest like it contained the Holy Grail. Because maybe, in a way, it did. Inside was her future. A future she never imagined could exist, at least, not for someone like her. A probationary role at a billion-dollar tech firm? A salary that didn't just cover bills but offered dignity? Health benefits that could stabilize her mother's care? She kept blinking, half expecting the whole morning to dissolve into a dream the moment she hit the ground floor. As the elevator coasted to a halt, she stared at her reflection in the mirrored panel. Her curls were frizzing from the humidity, and her lipstick had worn off long ago. But in her eyes beneath the fatigue, beyond the disbelief, there was something else. Resolve. The doors opened to the lobby. Caleb was there waiting, with a smile and a small envelope. For you, he said, handing it over. She opened it to find a prepaid rideshare card and a handwritten note. Maya, use this however you need. I'll be in touch by Friday. Welcome aboard. CL. She looked up at Caleb. He didn't have to. He wanted to, Caleb said. Mr. Langford doesn't say welcome aboard lightly. Maya stepped outside into the golden afternoon sun, the wind lifting her coat slightly as if encouraging her to move forward. Her mind was already racing with possibilities, calling the pharmacy, canceling her night shift, telling her mom everything. But her feet turned in a different direction. Not home, not yet. She needed to return somewhere first. Back at La Lumiere, the dining room was quiet. The pre-dinner rush hadn't begun, and the air held that artificial stillness only luxury places seemed to master. Maya stepped inside through the service entrance, head high. Her locker was still there, untouched. She opened it and pulled out her things, the thrifted hoodie, the extra pair of black ballet flats, the half-used pack of gum taped inside the door. She didn't feel triumphant, She didn't feel spiteful. She just felt done. Mr. Hawthorne's voice echoed down the hallway. I thought I told you. She turned, slowly, deliberately. You did, she said. You told me if I made one more mistake, I'd be out. He blinked. Then what are you doing here? Collecting my things, she said. And telling you face to face that I didn't make a mistake. I made a choice. And it was the right one. He scoffed. You don't belong in a place like this, Williams. You never did. I know, she replied calmly. Turns out I belong somewhere better. She left before he could respond. That evening, Maya sat at the kitchen table with her mother. 2 cups of chamomile tea steaming between them. The apartment smelled like lavender oil and warm dust. The hum of the ancient refrigerator was the only background music. Her mother listened silently as Maya recounted everything from the overheard conversation to the broken glass, to the meeting in Langford's office. When she was finished, her mother didn't speak right away. Then, softly, I remember your father once told you, the right thing and the easy thing are rarely the same thing. Looks like you took that to heart. Maya smiled. I think I finally understand what he meant. Her mother reached across the table and took her hand. I'm proud of you, baby. I think, Maya said, blinking back the sting in her eyes. For the first time in years, I'm proud of me too. They sat in quiet comfort for a while. Then her mother leaned back with a glint in her eye. So, when's your first day? Maya laughed. Technically, I haven't even signed a contract yet. Her mother chuckled, voice thin but steady. Well, don't wait too long. That man sounds like someone who sees more than a resume. Maya nodded slowly, her thoughts already drifting ahead. There would be challenges, plenty of them. Walking into a corporate tower as a young black woman from the South Side wasn't going to be a fairy tale. She would be doubted, dismissed, disrespected, but she wasn't afraid, because she had crossed the line already. She had spoken, and that line between silence and truth, between fear and action, was the one that had changed everything. That night, before bed, Maya opened the folder again. At the bottom of the documents, scrawled in ink just beneath Langford's signature, was a quote, "Justice begins when someone refuses to stay silent." She smiled. The world hadn't changed overnight, but maybe she had, and that was enough to begin. Christopher Langford was a man who trusted numbers. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't smile to your face and gut you behind closed doors. They didn't plot, didn't charm. They told the truth. Cold, objective, reliable. And yet, tonight, Christopher Langford was staring at the last glass of Bordeaux he would ever drink in the presence of Dean Mathers, and nothing felt reliable at all. The wine glistened in the candlelight, catching the refracted shimmer of the chandelier above, but the glass might as well have been filled with poison. Across from him, Dean leaned back in his chair at Orleans, another high-end Chicago restaurant full of starched linen and synthetic charm, flashing that familiar, easy grin. He'd just finished pitching a revised version of the acquisition proposal, this time laced with apologies and framed as a misunderstanding. Chris, Dean said, swirling his glass with too much flair. You've known me for 15 years. We've built empires together. Are you really going to take the word of a waitress over a signed contract? Langford didn't answer immediately. He glanced down at the untouched glass of wine, the deep red liquid reminding him of spilled ink on an unforgiving surface. Dean chuckled, but there was an edge to it now. Come on, you've always been the sharpest guy in the room. Don't tell me you've gone soft. Soft. Langford looked up slowly. That word had been hurled at him before, by investors, by journalists, by enemies, never by someone who claimed to be a friend. I'm not soft, Langford said, his voice calm but firm. I'm just not blind. Dean raised an eyebrow. So now what? You're out? Langford folded his hands. I've already pulled out. Dean stiffened. What? The merger's dead, as of yesterday morning. Dean's grin vanished like vapor. You should have received notice from our legal team, Langford added. And if you haven't, I imagine you will by the end of tonight. Dean set his glass down too hard. The chime of crystal was sharp, like a warning bell. You're making a mistake. No, Dean, Langford said, his tone lowering. I almost made one. But someone stopped me. Dean leaned forward. Someone? You mean that girl? That server? Langford's eyes narrowed. Her name is Maya Williams, and she had nothing to gain by telling me the truth, which makes her more trustworthy than anyone I've shared a conference room with in months. Dean scoffed. You're gambling your company on hearsay. I'm protecting it from sabotage. Dean shook his head. You're throwing away billions because of paranoia. Langford's gaze hardened. I'm walking away because I don't do business with men who assume they'll never be caught. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Dean leaned back again, eyes calculating. You'll regret this, Chris. The world doesn't reward sentimentality. Langford stood, adjusting his jacket. Maybe not, but it remembers integrity. And so do the people I'm building this company for. He left Dean at the table, the wine glass trembling in the wake of his exit. Back at Langford Tech, Maya stepped into the Community Ethics Division's small but bright office for her orientation meeting. She wore a soft gray blazer over her best-pressed blouse and slacks. Her shoes, though worn, had been cleaned and polished until they caught the hallway light. Inside the room, a few team members greeted her warmly. One older woman, Joan, offered her coffee and immediately began introducing her to the policies. But Maya's nerves remained tangled. Everything felt fragile, temporary, like if she breathed too hard, it might disappear. Still, she listened closely as Joan explained their mission, to evaluate the unintended human impact of Langford Tech's projects, especially in marginalized communities. We're the conscience, Joan said with a small smile. It doesn't always make us popular, but we keep the company from losing its soul. Maya felt her chest tighten at that. Keeping the company from losing its soul. That was something she could believe in. When Joan stepped out to grab some printouts, Maya wandered toward the whiteboard, where someone had scrawled a quote. A just society is not measured by how it treats the powerful but how it protects the vulnerable. Her fingertips hovered near the words, as if absorbing them. That's when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Christopher Langford stood in the doorway, casual as always, but with a gravity that commanded attention. Settling in? He asked. Maya nodded, trying to, yes. He stepped inside. I wanted to see for myself. She smiled nervously. Make sure I wasn't casing the place? He gave a quiet chuckle. Not quite. I just like knowing when good decisions work out. She shifted, unsure what to say. Langford looked around the office. When I started this company, I thought success would make me sleep better. But it didn't. It just made the stakes higher. Maya nodded slowly. I haven't always made the right calls, he continued. But lately I've learned something about course correction and about listening. He met her gaze. You didn't just save a deal, Maya. You reminded me of why I started all of this in the first place. She looked down, overwhelmed. I don't know if I did all that. You did more, he said. A beat passed. Then Langford straightened. I'll be at the advisory meeting later this week. If you ever feel something's off, I want you to say it. No matter who's in the room. No. Maya's throat tightened. You're giving me a lot of trust. Langford offered a quiet smile. You earned it. He nodded once, then turned to leave. Just before he stepped out, he added over his shoulder. By the way, that merger? It's dead. Dean knows it. I made sure he heard it from me. Maya's eyes widened. He didn't react poorly, did he? Langford's smile sharpened. He reacted like a man who got caught. No. Maya watched him disappear down the hall, her heart thudding not from fear but from a swelling sense of purpose. This wasn't just a new job. It was a new chapter, and for the first time in a long time, she was no longer on the outside looking in. The Langford Tech headquarters buzzed with its usual rhythm-flashing monitors, silent elevators, conversations in glass offices that echoed with the calm urgency of high-stakes decisions. But in one small conference room tucked away on the 12th floor, Maya Williams sat hunched over a printed contract, a red pen in her hand and doubt flickering behind her eyes. She had spent 2 weeks learning the structure of Langford Tech's operations, especially how data partnerships were approved. Joan, her mentor, had walked her through the impact model of every deal: who would be helped, who might be harmed, and who would be invisible in the metrics. Maya had soaked it in like a dry sponge, often staying late, reading case files long after others clocked out. But tonight, something didn't add up. The proposal on the table came from a newly formed vendor, Icarus Data Solutions. On paper, It looked pristine. New servers, domestic routing, encrypted API licenses. But buried deep in the appendix, Maya noticed an oddity, an IP transfer clause nearly identical to the one from the now-cancelled Dean Mathers deal. She circled it, then circled it again. Her instincts sparked like flint on stone. No fire yet, but the air was getting hot. Maya flipped back to the vendor's profile. Incorporated 6 weeks ago. No parent company listed. Website clean but vague. No executive team, no leadership photos. A signature at the bottom of the contract. T. Holloway. That name didn't mean anything to her. Yet. She picked up her phone and called Caleb. Caleb Moore, he answered, voice brisk. Hey, it's Maya, she said. Sorry to bother you after hours. No problem. What's up? Do we know anything about Icarus Data Solutions? There was a pause. Icarus? He repeated. That name's not on our approved list. Why? They're listed in a proposal submitted this morning for the new remote diagnostics project. But their IP clause is off. Really? Off. You think it's suspicious? I think it's familiar. Too familiar. Send it to me, Caleb said. I'll run a background trace. Anything else? Maya hesitated. Who's T. Holloway? Another pause. I don't know, Caleb said, but I'll find out. Later that night, Maya sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open, her mother asleep in the next room. A half-empty bowl of soup cooled beside her as she scrolled through archived tech news, trying to find any mention of Icarus Data Solutions. Nothing. But when she searched the name T. Holloway, one article came up from 3 years ago. A junior partner at a venture capital firm connected to Dean Mathers. Bingo. The headline read, Young exec Thomas Holloway leaves Mathers Capital to pursue independent ventures. The article was short, vague, and full of corporate fluff, but it was enough. Dean hadn't walked away quietly. He was planting seeds, and Icarus was one of them. Maya leaned back in her chair, hands shaking slightly. He was still trying, still reaching for Langford's infrastructure through new names, new doors. And if she hadn't seen the pattern, hadn't remembered the wording, he might have gotten through. She picked up her phone again. The next morning, Langford called a closed-door meeting with the legal and cybersecurity divisions. Maya was invited, along with Caleb, Joan, and the director of systems compliance. The room was windowless. No cell phones, just documents, projections, and a growing tension. Langford stood at the head of the table, composed but cold. Icarus Data Solutions is not a vendor, he began. They're a ghost company, one created with the sole purpose of slipping past our filters, and their registration matches an office in Miami that hasn't had a working landline in 2 years. He tapped the folder in front of him. Their proposal includes the same data siphon clause Dean tried to pass under his own firm. This time, it's masked as a temporary data sink. Clever, but not clever enough. The room was silent. Caleb spoke next. We found the link to T. Holloway, former Mathers Capital analyst. He was Dean's right-hand strategist for nearly 4 years. Joan leaned forward, her brow furrowed. He's already re-entering the system? Langford nodded. It's a war of attrition now. They'll keep testing us, and we'll keep closing doors. He turned to Maya. You caught it again. She flushed. It wasn't just me, but no one else saw it, he said, and that's what matters. No. He opened a fresh folder and handed it to her. This is the internal reporting channel for vendor ethics. I want you to lead its redesign, from the ground up. I want clearer alerts, language breakdowns, and a human oversight model, not just machine flags. Her eyes widened. That's a big responsibility. Langford offered the faintest smile. Good, because you're ready for big responsibilities. The room began to buzz again with questions, planning, next steps. But Maya sat still for a moment, absorbing it. Not just included, not just thanked. Trusted. That afternoon, as she returned to her desk, Maya passed the whiteboard again. A new quote had been written underneath the last. The first time you spot the pattern, it's luck. The second time, it's a warning. The third time, it's war. She didn't know who had written it, but she understood it. She looked down at the draft of the ethics report she'd started that morning, then opened a new document. Title, Countermeasures Against Cloaked Vendor Infiltration, Phase Uno. This was no longer just about a missed deal. It was about defending the integrity of a company that had offered her a voice and refusing to let bad actors rewrite the rules again. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the executive floor, its polished steel doors sliding open with a hush that belied the weight of the meeting about to take place. Maya stepped out, clutching a leather-bound folder, her heart tapping an anxious rhythm beneath her blouse. She wore a simple navy suit borrowed from Joan. "You'll grow into it." The older woman had smiled, and a pair of black pumps that pinched slightly at the toes. Nothing about her looked flashy, but everything about her now looked intentional. Christopher Langford had invited her to the quarterly advisory board meeting, not as a guest. As a speaker. The moment she received the invitation, she'd reread it 5 times, then once more. It didn't seem real. But here she was, 29, a former waitress from the South Side, walking into a room filled with power brokers who ran hedge funds, medical consortiums, and policy advisory committees. As she entered, the room fell briefly silent. It was long, narrow, and bathed in soft light. The table gleamed with polished mahogany, and 12 chairs circled it like thrones. Some of the men looked at her with polite confusion, others with thinly veiled skepticism. A few women older, sharp-eyed, offered brief nods, as if waiting to see which way the wind would blow. Langford stood and gestured to the seat beside him. Maya Williams, Community Ethics Division. A few eyebrows lifted. One man, heavy-set and silver-haired, leaned to the woman beside him and whispered something that ended in Diversity Initiative. Maya heard it. She didn't flinch. She opened her folder. Langford gave her the floor with a simple nod. "Good morning," she began, her voice clear, controlled. "Today, I'm here to present findings on predatory vendor behavior, specifically how subtle linguistic structures in data transfer agreements can be weaponized to undermine internal security while appearing ethical." The room stilled. She clicked the remote in her hand. The screen behind her lit up with a slide. Case study. Icarus Data Solutions. She walked them through it calmly, methodically. The shell company's incorporation, the recycled language, the connection to Dean Mathers, the almost invisible redirection of proprietary AI systems. Then, she paused. "What makes this dangerous," she said, "isn't just the breach. It's the assumption that no one will look closely enough to catch it." She let the sentence hang. "And that assumption," she added softly, "is no longer safe." Langford leaned back, satisfied. Across the table, murmurs stirred. The silver-haired man cleared his throat. "Miss Williams," he said, "with respect, you're relatively new to the industry. Isn't it possible you're seeing patterns where none exist? Corporate paranoia has a way of inflating shadows." Maya didn't blink. "I used to serve wine at La Lumiere," she replied. "I was taught to anticipate needs before they were spoken. Read the silence between words. Spot discomfort before it turned into complaint." She smiled gently. "Turns out those are the same skills required in this room." There was a pause, then a chuckle from one of the senior women at the far end. "Well said," she murmured. Langford tapped his pen against the table once. "I stand behind Maya's findings, entirely. And I believe her perspective is not only valuable, it's essential." The tone shifted. Heads nodded. Questions became less defensive, more curious. They asked about detection models, community feedback integration, and digital ethics education. Maya answered them all. By the time the meeting ended, even the skeptics had gone quiet. Afterward, Langford approached her in the hallway. "You handled that well." Maya exhaled, finally letting her shoulders drop. "I thought my knees would give out halfway through." "You looked like a veteran," he said. "And you turned that boardroom into a classroom." She smiled. "They tried to test me." "They'll try again," he said. "But now they know you're not decoration." A pause stretched between them. Then Langford added, more quietly, "You've earned their respect, Maya, even the ones who won't admit it." She felt the weight of those words. Not praise, recognition. "I just told the truth," she said. "You told it well," he replied. They began walking toward the elevators. "You know," Langford continued, "this company used to run on trust. I built it with friends, people I believed in, people like Dean." Maya glanced at him. "I thought loyalty meant longevity," he said. "But sometimes, the people closest to you assume they'll never have to earn your trust again." He stopped walking. "You reminded me that trust is like fire. It has to be tended, or it dies. Maya nodded slowly. I think people confuse loyalty with silence, but real loyalty tells you the truth even when it's hard. Langford looked at her for a long moment. Then, you ever think about law school? Maya blinked. Excuse me? Or policy, cyber law, ethics. We could help you get there. She smiled. You mean on top of all this? He grinned. I mean, if you ever want to shape the rules instead of just spotting the loopholes. The elevator dinged open. Maya stepped in, folder still in hand. I'll think about it, she said. As the doors slid shut, Langford said quietly, You're not just an asset, Maya. You're a compass. That night, Maya returned home to find her mother sitting up on the couch, knitting in her lap and the TV humming softly with the evening news. A story was running. Langford Tech implements new ethics division oversight following vendor breach. Her mother turned to her. Is that? Maya nodded. That's you? Sort of, she said. One part of it. Her mother beamed. I told you. All that listening you did when you were little, it would matter one day. Maya smiled, curling up beside her. Turns out, she said, the world finally started listening back. Now was so. Maya arrived at the office earlier than usual. Stepping into the soft glow of pre-dawn light filtering through the Langford Tech atrium. The building was still, almost reverent in its silence. Security nodded at her like they had come to expect her early appearances. She offered a tired but sincere smile and made her way upstairs. There was a rhythm now, a daily cadence of reports, reviews, policy rewrites, and ethics simulations. But this morning felt different. Heavier. A storm cloud in her gut she couldn't quite explain. She reached her desk and opened her laptop, the familiar hum welcoming her back into the system. As she sipped the lukewarm coffee she'd grabbed from the lobby kiosk, her inbox pinged with a flagged message. Subject: urgent, system interruption alert, flagged by internal audit. Her brows knitted. It was an internal alert, one she had helped design just last week. It wasn't just about an anomaly. It was about a patterned anomaly activity disguised as authorized access, but just irregular enough to raise suspicion. She opened the report. The flagged activity had occurred between 3:42 and 3:49 a.m. A remote login from an IP address registered in Boston had accessed archival project data related to an older Langford prototype called Project Warden. Her blood went cold. Project Warden was a discontinued AI surveillance program meant to assist municipal law enforcement. It had been shelved due to ethical concerns about racial bias in predictive policing. Langford himself had buried it and labeled the project a mistake of ambition. So why was someone pulling those files? And more importantly, how did they get past the lockdown? She immediately forwarded the data to Caleb, adding a short message. Caleb code red. See logs from 3:42 a.m. possible backdoor breach. Maya. Then she stood. Her heels clicked against the tile floor as she strode toward the compliance office. Joan wasn't in yet. Neither was Caleb. But something about this needed eyes now. She found Langford in the glass conference room, speaking quietly with a woman from external PR. He saw Maya's face and paused mid-sentence. Excuse me, he said, rising. We'll continue this later. As the PR rep left, Maya walked in, holding her tablet. There's been an unauthorized access attempt on the Warden archives, she said flatly. 3:42 a.m. Traced to a masked IP. Rerouted through a Boston node. Langford's expression shifted instantly, his calm faltering for just a second before hardening into laser focus. Who would want those files, he asked. Someone who knows what they were, she said. Someone who wants them weaponized or leaked. Langford pinched the bridge of his nose. We had layers of encryption. Only 3 people still have backdoor legacy access, and I'm one of them. Who are the other 2? She asked. Langford's silence was an answer in itself. Dean? Maya guessed. Langford gave a single nod. And someone else, whom I thought I could trust. Who? Langford didn't answer right away. Then, after a breath, Thomas Holloway. The name hit like a stone. Maya took a step back. But he's already tied to Icarus. We shut that door. We did, Langford said. But some doors don't lock the first time. An hour later, Caleb confirmed Maya's suspicion. They didn't just pull the files, he said over speakerphone. They cloned the source code. That means the Warden program, the entire neural framework, is in someone else's hands. And if it gets leaked? Maya asked. Langford didn't hesitate. We'll be crucified. Project Warden had been controversial even before it launched. Its codebase had flagged black and brown neighborhoods for increased risk zones based on skewed crime stats from decades of discriminatory policing. Langford had pulled the plug before it deployed, but if it leaked now, in the current climate, it would not only destroy the company's reputation, it would shatter public trust. Caleb continued. Whoever did this was careful. They used cloned admin credentials. I'm still tracing the access points. Maya's thoughts raced. We need a strategy. Rend. Langford nodded. 3 fronts. 1. Contain the leak. 2. Identify the leak. 3. Prepare for the worst. Whistleblower contingencies? Caleb asked. Activated, Langford said, but quietly. No panic, no press. Maya leaned over the table. There's something else, she said. Dean wouldn't go back to Warden unless he wanted to make a statement. A power move? Langford tilted his head. You think he'll go public? Maybe, but not with his name on it. He'll leak it anonymously, then position himself as the one with the solution afterward. Langford nodded slowly. Classic PR judo. Maya looked out the window. Rain had begun to tap against the glass like warning fingers. The skyline blurred behind a veil of gray. There's one more thing we haven't considered, she said quietly. Langford turned to her. What? What if this wasn't just about revenge? He raised an eyebrow. What if Warden wasn't the goal? She said. What if it's a test? A distraction? A silence fell, because the truth hung heavy in the air. This might only be the beginning. That night, Maya sat by her mother's bedside, folding laundry, while the soft hum of a classic jazz station played from the living room. You're quiet, her mother said. Maya offered a tight smile. Work's getting complicated. Her mother adjusted her blanket, the light casting soft shadows across her weathered face. You always knew complicated, she said, but you never ran from it. Maya folded a pair of socks. This time, it's different. You mean because it's bigger? Because it's quieter, Maya whispered. No one sees it coming. But if I miss it, people could get hurt. Not just careers. Lives. Her mother studied her, then reached out and took Maya's hand. Then don't blink. Maya nodded, a lump forming in her throat, because the storm wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. 2 days after the breach, Langford Tech's HQ no longer felt like the sanctuary it once was. The glass walls, once symbols of transparency, now felt like mirrors reflecting doubt, suspicion, and the creeping sense that someone inside was watching too closely, or not closely enough. Maya sat in the Ethics Division's war room, a space once used for social impact brainstorming that now buzzed like a military command center. Screens lined the walls, showing internal access logs, encryption status maps, and AI behavior audits. The room smelled of stale coffee, anxiety, and quiet resolve. Caleb was hunched over the main terminal, fingers dancing across the keys. I traced the cloned credentials used in the breach, he said. They came from a user profile that was deactivated 6 months ago. Deactivated? Maya asked, stepping beside him. Yeah. On paper, the account belongs to a former systems engineer, Luis Serrano, but he moved to Austin and hasn't logged in since February. She frowned. So either he's being framed, or someone kept his access alive deliberately. Exactly, Caleb said, adjusting his glasses. And whoever it is, they're not working alone. Maya felt it then, a familiar tug deep in her chest. The same one she felt when she'd overheard Dean Mathers at La Lumiere. Something about all this smelled too clean. Chris needs to hear this, she said. Caleb nodded, already pulling up the access logs and security flags. But as she turned to leave, a quiet beep echoed from her own workstation. A new message. No subject line. No sender. Just a short string of words. You're looking in the wrong direction. Her heart froze. She clicked to trace the sender. No address. No path. The message had tunneled in through an internal relay, masked perfectly within the network's heartbeat traffic. It hadn't come from outside. It had come from within. She called Caleb over. Whoever sent this, she said, pointing, knows exactly what we're doing and where we're not looking. Caleb's face went pale. We've got a mole. Langford's office was unusually quiet. The blinds were drawn. He sat behind his desk, sleeves rolled up, jaw tight. Maya handed him a printed version of the message. He read it slowly. "So we have a breach," he said. "A ghost company linked to Dean. A backdoor into Project Warden. And now, someone on the inside playing both sides." Maya nodded. "And they're trying to mislead us." That message was a warning, or a taunt. Langford folded the paper and set it down. "I built this company believing that transparency would protect us," he said. "That if I gave people power, they'd use it responsibly." "Most do," Maya said gently. "But one doesn't," he replied. "And that's all it takes." He rose and walked to the window, staring out over the city. "We're going to need help." "Internal affairs?" Maya asked. He turned to her. "No, that'll take weeks. We need someone who knows how to move, quietly." She raised an eyebrow. "Who are you thinking?" He hesitated. Then, "Naomi Brooks, former federal investigator. I worked with her during the antitrust lawsuit 6 years ago. She's off the radar now, consulting for select clients." Maya nodded. "Bring her in." Langford picked up the phone. As he spoke to Naomi's assistant, Maya's mind raced through everything they knew and everything they didn't. Someone had gone to a lot of trouble to cover their tracks. The Mathers connection was only the first layer. Warden had been a distraction. There was a deeper agenda, one that hadn't surfaced yet, and Maya felt certain it was about more than sabotage. It was about control. Naomi Brooks arrived that afternoon. Tall, composed, with a clipped tone and a no-nonsense gaze, she looked like someone who could spot a lie in an empty room. "Don't call me agent," she said as she stepped into the war room. "I'm retired, for now." Maya briefed her, showing the internal message, the breach logs, and the evidence pointing to the deactivated profile. Naomi listened, arms crossed. "You're right," she said after reviewing everything. "This wasn't an external attack. It was an insertion, surgical, intimate, and extremely personal." She pointed to the message again. "This isn't just misdirection. It's escalation. Whoever sent this isn't just hiding. They want control over what you do next." Maya's stomach turned. "So what do we do next?" Langford asked. Naomi's eyes narrowed. "We flip the game. Feed them false intel. Watch where it leaks. And wait." Langford nodded. "You have full discretion. Use whatever you need." Naomi glanced at Maya. "She's coming with me." Maya blinked. "Me? You're the reason this came to light. That makes you valuable and dangerous. They're watching you. That gives us leverage." Maya swallowed. "Okay." Naomi's voice softened slightly. "Don't worry. You'll be protected." Maya shook her head. "I'm not worried. I'm ready." That evening, Maya and Naomi reviewed a curated version of internal documents edited just enough to look authentic but wrong enough to bait the mole. It included a fake initiative, suggesting that Langford was planning to restart a new AI surveillance project, Project Sentinel. The trap was set. Now, they waited. As Maya left the office late that night, the city stretched before her like a map of possibility and peril. Her phone buzzed an automated alert from the ethics division. File, Sentinel, V17, DocX, accessed, unauthorized terminal. She froze. It had taken less than 2 hours. She dialed Naomi. They took the bait. Naomi's voice was cool and sharp. "Good. Now we follow the wire back to the source." And for the first time, Maya realized they weren't just defending a company anymore. They were exposing a war. The office was unnaturally quiet the next morning. Maya could sense it even before she stepped through the security checkpoint. The usual rhythm of keyboard clicks, coffee brewing, and half-mumbled greetings was replaced by silence, tense, deliberate silence. Something had shifted overnight. Naomi Brooks was already waiting in the war room. She stood in front of the main monitor, arms folded, her body still but her eyes razor-sharp. Caleb was next to her, paler than usual, his jaw clenched tight. Maya entered, setting her bag down without a word. She could feel it. This was going to be one of those days, the kind that changes everything. Naomi didn't waste time. She clicked the remote. The screen filled with a heat map of internal activity. One cluster blinked red. 2:14 a.m., Naomi began. The Sentinel file was accessed from a remote terminal registered under a dummy workstation ID. But here's the thing. Security cameras caught movement near that terminal just seconds before the breach. She hit another key. Footage appeared. Grainy, black and white. The image of a tall figure, hoodie pulled up, walking briskly past the open workstations. Maya leaned closer. You can't see their face. No, Naomi said. But we don't need to. They used a badge to enter the restricted floor. And that badge, she clicked again, belongs to Henry Walsh. Maya's mouth parted slightly. Langford's chief technology officer? Caleb nodded grimly. Badge ID, terminal login, workstation access, everything points to him. But Henry? Maya asked. He's been with Chris for over a decade. Why would he? Because the closer they are, Naomi interrupted, the easier it is to justify betrayal. She paced slowly. We don't confront him yet. If we do, he'll vanish and take everything with him. We need a tether. Something that forces him to stay close. Think leverage. Think loyalty. Maya bit her lip. What about his daughter? Naomi turned to her. Go on. She's sick, Maya said. I remember seeing the name Sophie Walsh on the employee support list. Chris had the company cover her treatments through a special fund. Henry would never jeopardize that. Naomi's eyes narrowed with interest. So maybe he didn't think this would jeopardize anything. Caleb frowned. Maybe he thought he was helping. Maya looked back at the grainy footage. Or maybe he was promised something in return. Later that day, Maya and Naomi watched from the far end of the cafeteria as Henry Walsh sat down with his coffee, his posture as relaxed as ever. A tablet open in front of him, half a croissant on the tray. Still coming to work like nothing happened, Maya muttered. He has to, Naomi said. The performance matters. He's pretending nothing's wrong, because if he breaks routine, he thinks we'll notice. We already have, Maya replied. Naomi gave a thin smile. Then let's give him a reason to squirm. That afternoon, Naomi drafted a memo deliberately vague, carefully worded. It hinted at an upcoming internal realignment of compliance structures, something that would temporarily limit access to sensitive legacy programs, including AI prototypes. No, Langford sent the memo himself. The effect was immediate. Henry Walsh requested a one-on-one meeting with Christopher Langford within the hour. Langford kept his voice even, his expression unreadable, as he listened to Henry speak. I just wanted to express some concern, Henry said, his tone casual. There's been a lot of chatter around ethics, compliance, AI oversight. It's getting restrictive. Langford tilted his head. Restrictive? How? Henry hesitated. Some of our legacy projects, useful projects, are being treated like liabilities. That's not what we agreed to. Langford leaned back. Tell me, Henry, why would a CTO be concerned with discontinued prototypes? Henry smiled tightly. Because they represent lost potential. Langford studied him for a moment, or dangerous ambition. The silence between them was sharp as broken glass. Finally, Langford stood. We're not here to build surveillance empires, Henry. We're here to build trust. That's what makes us different. Henry rose, his smile strained. Of course. As he left the office, Langford pressed the intercom. Naomi, he's sweating. That night, Maya reviewed the forensic data again. Something about it still bothered her. The IP routing, the timing, even the dummy terminal, it felt over-engineered, too perfect. She opened the original Sentinel document and flipped to the metadata log. Her breath caught. The document hadn't been copied. It had been altered. A small snippet of code had been inserted harmless on the surface, but with a hidden behavior. Once opened, it pinged a secondary external address. A signal. Maya called Naomi immediately. We didn't just bait a mole, she said. We triggered a signal. Someone outside knows we're onto them. Naomi's voice went dark, which means Dean Mathers knows too. Elsewhere, in a glass high-rise overlooking the lake, Dean Mathers stood by a window, sipping whiskey. Across from him, Thomas Holloway placed his phone down. They took the bait, Holloway said. And they think they're ahead. Dean smiled. Good. Let them keep thinking that. He turned back to the skyline, his reflection a ghost against the city lights. Because now, he said, we set the real trap. Maya's apartment smelled of rain and jasmine tea. The storm outside drummed against the windows in rhythmic thuds, but inside, her world was spinning far faster than any downpour. She sat on the couch, wrapped in a wool throw, staring at her laptop screen as if it might blink first. Every bit of her training, every instinct she'd honed since stepping foot in Langford Tech, told her one thing: they were losing control. The mole wasn't just slipping information out, they were feeding Maya's team false confidence. And the ping buried inside the Sentinel document? That wasn't just an alert. It was a signal for the next phase. Her phone buzzed. "Langford, come to my office. Now." No punctuation, no warmth. She was out the door in 5 minutes. Christopher Langford looked more weathered than usual. The blinds in his office were closed tight, and his tie was loose at the collar. He stood when Maya entered, gesturing silently to the chair across from his. "I got a call from the board," he said after a long pause. Maya's heart stilled. They received an anonymous package documentation on Project Warden. And more damning than that, screenshots suggesting that Langford Tech has been developing its successor, Sentinel. She blinked. "But that's the fake doc. The trap." Langford raised a hand. "They don't know that. And they're scared. 2 members have already called for an internal audit. And if they push it through, Naomi's investigation gets sidelined." Maya leaned forward. "This is the move. Dean leaked the fake intel to incite the board. He's trying to weaponize their fear." Langford nodded grimly. "And if he succeeds, we'll lose control of the company narrative. I'll be portrayed as the reckless visionary who went too far. And you?" He hesitated. "I'll be the naive compliance officer who helped cover it up," she finished quietly. Langford's jaw tightened. "I'm not letting that happen," she said. "Not on my watch." Across the city, Naomi Brooks sat in a nondescript surveillance van, eyes locked on the glowing screen in front of her. Caleb was beside her, tapping into internal server logs and tracing bounced signals. They had narrowed down the location of the Sentinel ping to a corporate co-working space on the edge of town. Nothing flashy, just enough to stay invisible. Inside, a terminal had been activated less than an hour after Maya triggered the bait. Naomi's earpiece buzzed. "Maya here. We have a problem. The board's moving." Naomi muttered a curse. "Mathers wants to cut the head off before we finish the sweep." We need proof," Maya said. "Not just suspicion, hard evidence." "We're close," Naomi replied. "I can feel it. Keep the board calm. Stall if you have to." The call ended. Caleb looked up. "There's something else," he said. "That terminal? It accessed not just Sentinel. It linked to a second archive, an older, encrypted one called Aegis." Naomi frowned. "Aegis?" Caleb pulled it up. Prototype code Langford never finished. Something about predictive data shielding. Supposedly, it could rewrite AI behavior in real-time, preempting bias by isolating contextual anomalies. Naomi sat back. So while we thought they were after Warden or Sentinel, the real prize was Aegis. And now Dean has it. At Langford Tech, the storm rolled in both outside and within. Maya met with 2 board members, older men in well-tailored suits, both looking equally tired and skeptical. "Miss Williams," one said, "we appreciate your dedication. But this situation has moved beyond internal protocol. We're facing media exposure, federal scrutiny. You're facing manipulation," Maya said, calm but firm. "Dean Mathers is orchestrating this. He created the leak, planted the data, and now he's forcing you to doubt the very people protecting the company." "Do you have proof of that?" the second board member asked. "Not yet," Maya admitted, "but we will." The first man sighed. "Without evidence, we'll be forced to recommend external oversight, effective immediately." "No," a voice cut in. Langford entered the room, slow and deliberate. "I built this company," he said. "I made mistakes, big ones, but Maya Williams is not one of them. She's the reason we're not already on the front page of The Guardian." He stepped forward, voice low but firm. "Give us 48 hours. If we don't have hard proof by then, I'll step aside." Maya turned to him, stunned. The board members exchanged glances. 48 hours, one agreed. Not a minute more. That night, Maya sat alone in the ethics lab, staring at the flickering screen. Caleb had left hours ago. Naomi was running surveillance. Langford was likely in his office preparing for the worst. She felt like a soldier guarding the last outpost of reason. Her eyes drifted to the photo on her desk, a snapshot of her and her mother outside their old apartment, arms linked, both grinning in the sunlight. Stay small, stay silent, stay safe, that had been the unspoken rule growing up. But Maya had broken that rule the day she stepped between Christopher Langford and a billion-dollar deal. And now, she was about to break a system that rewarded silence with survival. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Naomi. Got a hit. Meet me at the docks. Bring Langford. It's time. The docks were nearly deserted by the time Maya and Langford arrived. A thin mist hung in the air, wrapping the shipping containers and old cranes in ghostly silence. Seagulls cried in the distance, their calls lost in the hum of the wind and the soft lapping of the dark water. Naomi Brooks stood near the edge of the wharf, one hand in her coat pocket, the other holding a small tablet. Her breath fogged in the cool night air as she turned to face them. You came fast, she said without looking up. You said it was time, Maya replied. We didn't hesitate. Langford adjusted the collar of his coat. What did you find? Naomi handed him the tablet. A private server farm. Leased anonymously 6 months ago. Inside, encrypted files, activity logs, cloned credentials, access trails, and a full copy of the Aegis prototype. Unlocked. Maya's eyes widened. Unlocked? But Aegis was never finished. Someone finished it, Naomi said grimly. And they did it using internal infrastructure. They've been running live simulations testing how Aegis alters AI decision-making across different datasets. Langford stared at the screen, the lines of code reflecting in his eyes. This is impossible. That system was theoretical. We shelved it before even establishing a neural training protocol. Apparently, Dean picked up where you left off, Naomi said. He's not just leaking skeletons from your closet, he's giving them new life. Maya felt a chill crawl up her spine. What does it do? Naomi sighed. Aegis is a weapon in the right or wrong hands. It can rewrite how an AI interprets data in real time. Not just suppress bias, but disguise it. Make any pattern look clean. Make any behavior seem benign. Langford's voice dropped. It can make unethical decisions look compliant. Exactly, Naomi said. If Mathers sells this, there won't be a whistleblower alive who can prove abuse. He's trying to reset the rules of accountability. Maya stepped back, heart racing. How close is he to launching it? She asked. Naomi looked at her directly. Too close. She turned toward a nearby container, motioning for them to follow. I had a team sweep the site. There's more. They walked silently across the gravel lot, footsteps crunching in the quiet. Inside the container, a makeshift lab buzzed with low hums of machinery. Servers stacked high against the walls blinked with silent urgency. A monitor showed a simulation screen one Maya recognized. Warden, but not just Warden. Warden powered by Aegis. Naomi tapped the spacebar, and the simulation began to run. Watch, she said. On screen, a city grid appeared. Data flowed across streets, buildings, and marked individuals. Maya could see the heat maps, the behavior scores, the risk ratings. It looked legitimate standard predictive modeling. But Naomi slowed the feed. There, she pointed. That subject just moved across 3 zones without raising a single flag. But he's carrying a concealed weapon. The system knew it flagged the signature. But Aegis rerouted the alert. Masked it. Langford's face hardened. It didn't eliminate bias. It hid accountability. Maya whispered, he's going to sell this as progress. No. Naomi nodded. Imagine a world where an algorithm makes the wrong call, and no one can prove it. No paper trail. No error log. Just silence. Maya clenched her fists. This is why he baited the board, why he leaked Sentinel. It was never about Warden. It was always about this. Langford turned to Naomi. Can we shut it down? We can't go through legal channels yet. Dean's team will bury the evidence before we even get a subpoena. We need leverage. Maya stepped closer to the screen. What if we use Aegis? Not to deceive, but to expose. Naomi raised an eyebrow. Go on. We feed the simulation real-time data. But instead of hiding its manipulations, we record them. We show the board exactly what this program does, how it rewrites truth. We let them see how easy it is to be fooled. Langford nodded slowly. Reverse the illusion. Use the weapon to expose the war. Naomi smiled faintly. I like it. Risky, but it could work. Oh, back at Langford Tech, Caleb and his team worked through the night. Maya led the data team, carefully curating input scenarios. Real footage. Real stats. Let the machine tell its lies while Maya's program recorded the edits, time-stamped every switch, every falsified flag. By dawn, they had the footage. Langford called the board to an emergency session. Naomi arranged for discreet transmission. Maya stood at the front of the room, hands steady this time. No nerves, only purpose. This, she said, is what they wanted to sell as innovation. She played the recording. The board watched in stunned silence as the simulation rolled. At first, it looked like success. Low-risk flags. Controlled zones. No incidents. Then Maya paused the footage and rewound it. She played it again this time, overlaying the raw data feed. The contrast was jarring. Crimes hidden. Bias injected. Truth rewritten. The board murmured. Langford stepped forward. This is not the future. This is the end of trust. And if we don't stop it now, Langford Tech becomes complicit in the illusion. Silence. Then the board chair stood. What do you need? Langford looked at Maya. 48 hours, she said, to bring Mathers into the light. The board chair nodded. You have it. That night, Maya stood alone in the atrium, staring out at the city. Behind her, Langford approached. I used to believe that intelligence alone would save us, he said. Now I know it's integrity that must lead. Maya turned to him. Dean knows we're coming. Langford smiled. Good. Let him. Because now they weren't just reacting. They were ready to strike. It began with a name. One name, quietly spoken in the hush of Langford Tech's internal war room. Julian. Caleb had said it without looking up from his screen, voice low, as if speaking it too loud would give it power. Maya turned from the whiteboard, marker still in hand. Julian. Caleb nodded. Julian Merrick. Cybersecurity consultant. Worked for Langford Tech 2 years ago. Fired after red flag behavior in sandbox testing, he was caught modifying internal oversight tools. Langford frowned. That name never reached me. HR buried it, Caleb said. Dean brought him in as a contractor. When it went sideways, they paid him off and shut the file. Naomi narrowed her eyes. And now? Caleb pulled up a security photo. Julian, thinner now, unshaven, stepping into a biotech incubator on the east side. He's back. Recruited by Holloway 6 months ago. And according to IP tracing, he's the one who finished Aegis. Maya stared at the screen. He's the ghost in the system. Naomi stepped forward. Then it's time to flush him out. The plan was simple on paper. Maya would lead a face-to-face, bait Julian with an offer, appeal to his ego, his fear, or both. Langford would stay close, monitoring every move through Naomi's private surveillance rig. Caleb would run point from HQ. Naomi didn't like it. You're going into a room with a man who's rewritten truth itself, she said. I'm not scared, Maya replied. Naomi didn't blink. You should be. The meeting took place in a defunct co-working cafe in Brooklyn, rented under a dummy business name. Maya walked in alone. Julian was already seated, laptop open, dark bags under his eyes, fingers twitching near the edge of the table. You're late, he muttered, not looking up. I came alone, Maya said. Like you asked. Prove it. She turned slowly, arms raised. No wires, no backup. Julian eyed her. You know, I thought you were just the compliance lady. Didn't expect you to dig this deep. I didn't expect you to be so careless, she said. That got his attention. You think I'm the problem? Julian hissed. I built the fail-safes. I cleaned up their mess. Dean gave me purpose. You people only ever gave me NDAs and a quiet exit. Maya sat opposite to him, calm, still. You think Dean's going to protect you? You're a tool to him. The moment Aegis launches, you're a liability. He sneered. You think you scare me? No, she said. I think the truth scares you. Julian's fingers hovered over his keyboard. I could bring the whole system down. Right now. You want that? I want you to realize it already is down, she said softly. And you're the one standing in the rubble. Silence. Then a breath. Then, Fine, Julian said. You want names? Dates? Access logs? Yes. I want immunity. No promises. Julian's hand trembled. Then we're done. He moved to stand, but Maya was faster. She slid a flash drive across the table. What's this? Everything we already know, she said. You're not the first line. You're the last rope holding the noose. Julian stared at it. And if I don't help you? Dean walks. You burn. Your name becomes the face of Aegis, of corruption, of bias manipulation. You'll be a case study in ethics seminars for the next 50 years. Julian exhaled sharply. Then slowly he sat back down. At Langford Tech HQ, Caleb watched the data stream light up. He's in, he told Naomi. He's giving it up. Langford leaned forward. Let's hear it. No. Julian's upload was fast encrypted files, email chains, recorded calls. But the final piece? A video. Dean Mathers, sitting in a private conference room, speaking directly into camera. Aegis is more than a product, he said. It's liberation. It allows us to rise above the old rules, the outdated codes. We don't need oversight. We don't need transparency. We need efficiency. We need control. He leaned closer, and once we sell this to defense, to government, there won't be a single decision made without us touching it. Naomi hit pause. That's your smoking gun. Langford looked at Maya. Now we go to war. The next morning, Langford Tech released a full transparency report to the public. Langford stood before press and employees alike, Maya and Naomi at his side. We were infiltrated, he said, by former executives, by greed, by ambition masked as progress. He paused, but we didn't just uncover a betrayal. We uncovered a philosophy, one that says, control matters more than ethics, that speed matters more than truth. He gestured to Maya. This woman uncovered the breach. She risked her name, her safety, her future for yours. Maya stepped forward, voice clear. Aegis was designed to bend truth, to rewrite bias as balance. But the real threat isn't the code, it's the silence we allow around it. She looked directly at the cameras. Today, we end that silence. By evening, federal investigators had raided the satellite office where Julian had worked. Dean Mathers was placed under investigation for data tampering, ethical fraud, and corporate espionage. Thomas Holloway vanished into legal limbo. And Julian Merrick? Protective custody, under Naomi's watchful eye. Langford Tech's stock dipped then rebounded. But something deeper had shifted. The company had chosen truth. Even when it hurt, even when it nearly broke them. And Maya? She didn't just keep her job. She found her voice. Maya stood at the edge of the rooftop terrace, the Manhattan skyline blazing in golden hues behind her. The air was cool and full of movement, like the world had exhaled something heavy. Far below, the city resumed its rhythm, unaware of the battle that had been fought in conference rooms, on servers, and in silence. Behind her, the Langford Tech building hummed with cautious celebration. The press conference had aired nationwide. Langford's statement had gone viral. And in every newsroom, morning show, and tech forum, one name kept surfacing again and again. Maya Williams. Careful, Naomi said, stepping up beside her with 2 steaming mugs. You stay up here too long. They'll start calling you the company oracle. Maya smirked. I think I've had enough titles for 1 week. Naomi handed her a mug. You earned it. They sipped in silence for a moment, the wind teasing Maya's curls. I don't feel victorious, Maya admitted. Just awake. Naomi nodded slowly. That's how real victories feel. Less fireworks, more clarity. Maya glanced sideways. Do you regret it, coming back into this mess? Naomi chuckled. I've been in bigger messes. But this one? She tapped her chest. This one mattered. They stood together, watching the clouds move slowly over the skyline like quiet survivors of a storm. Inside, Christopher Langford walked the floor of his company differently now. Slower. More intentional. Employees smiled when they saw him, some nodded. Some gave cautious waves, not out of fear, but recognition. He found Maya in the break room, still holding her now cool coffee. I spoke to the board this morning, he said. They've agreed to create an independent ethics division, one that reports directly to oversight, not to me. Maya raised an eyebrow. No resistance? Plenty, he said, but this time the truth was louder than their discomfort. She smiled. I'd like you to lead it, he added. Her smile faded. Chris, I'm not qualified? Experienced? He interrupted. You proved that titles don't make leaders. Choices do. She looked down at her hands, heart racing. I don't know, she said honestly. It feels too big. Langford nodded. Good. That means you'll treat it with the weight it deserves. He left the offer on the table, walking out with no pressure. Just trust. Later that afternoon, Maya found herself walking past the same glass-paneled conference room where she'd once stood between Langford and a billion-dollar deal. The memory flashed his hand mid-signature, her voice cracking, the world hanging on her hesitation. And now, everything had changed. She turned a corner and ran into Caleb. Hey, he said, you forgot this. He handed her a flash drive. What is it? Our log, he replied. Everything we did. From the moment you stepped into the ethics lab to the takedown of Mathers, I archived it. Thought you might want a record. Maya looked down at the small drive in her hand. So much history in something so light. You're a good man, Caleb. He shrugged. I just followed the loudest conscience in the room. She smiled. Remind me to write that on a mug. That evening, Maya visited her mother. The living room smelled of lemon balm and slow-cooked rice. The TV was muted, playing an old Western film in black and white. Her mother sat in her favorite recliner, blanket over her knees, eyes bright. You looked like your father up there, she said, motioning to the screen where Maya's name had appeared earlier. He'd be proud. Maya sat beside her, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. I was so scared, Mom, she whispered. I know, her mother replied, but you didn't run. That's the part that matters. They sat like that for a long time. A quiet moment. A full circle. As dusk fell over the city, Maya returned to her apartment, kicked off her shoes, and opened her laptop. A dozen emails blinked back at her congratulatory notes, news requests, invitations to speak at panels. She ignored them for now. Instead, she opened a blank document. Title, Truth Has No Silence. She began to type not for work, not for Langford Tech, not even for the press, but for herself. To remember that in a world where silence was the currency of power, the act of speaking up, of choosing justice over comfort, was a revolution in itself. The revolution had started with a whisper in a restaurant. Now it echoed across cities, and it bore the name of a woman who had once been told she didn't belong. Maya Williams had changed the story, and she was only getting started. 3 weeks after the storm, Langford Tech felt different, not quieter, not louder, but steadier. As if the building itself had learned to breathe deeper. Gone were the tight, nervous smiles, the empty praise. In their place was something far rarer, respect. Maya noticed it in the little things, a longer glance of gratitude from interns, a nod from engineers she'd never met. Even the barista downstairs spelled her name right now. But she also noticed the change within herself. She didn't shrink anymore when stepping into a boardroom. She didn't hesitate to ask harder questions, or speak when silence might have been safer. And for the first time since she'd arrived in New York, she didn't feel like she was borrowing someone else's space. She belonged. The new ethics division had been set up in a repurposed floor, clean, minimalist, transparent glass walls. It was more than just symbolic. Every discussion, every draft, every review would be visible, accountable, and archived. Langford's decision to remove himself from the chain of oversight was rare in Silicon Valley. It made headlines. Some scoffed, others followed. Maya had chosen her deputy, Caleb. I don't do suits, he warned her the day she offered. Good, she said. Neither do I. Naomi helped them hire the rest, diverse, sharp, from outside the echo chamber. Former prosecutors, data rights activists, AI ethicists, even a former journalist who'd once been blacklisted by corporate PR teams. They called themselves the Glass Unit, and for the first time, Langford Tech had a pulse that didn't just beat for progress but for principle. Dean Mathers had gone silent. His lawyers deflected every inquiry. His known properties were either frozen or sold off to shell firms. The DOJ was slow-moving, but persistent. Naomi had warned it might take a year or longer before charges stuck. But Maya wasn't waiting for headlines. She was building fortresses against the next him, because there would always be another Dean, another Julian, another Holloway. And her job wasn't just to stop them, but to make sure no one like her ever had to do it alone again. One afternoon, Langford called Maya up to his private office, not to discuss policy, not to plan damage control, but to show her something. She followed him onto the roof, where two workers were installing a small metal sculpture just outside the greenhouse wall. It was simple, a hand holding a pen, stylized, modern, but unmistakable. He nodded to the base. There, etched in clean serif font, were 5 words. She chose truth over silence. Maya blinked. "This is too much," she said. Langford smiled. "It's not enough." He turned toward her. "You didn't just save this company. You reminded it what it was supposed to be." Die. They stood there a moment longer, not as boss and employee, but as two people who had learned, through fire, that redemption was not about being perfect, it was about being better, and doing it over and over again. That night, Maya walked home through Central Park. The sky was lavender, the air crisp with the first hints of fall. A jazz saxophonist played near the fountain. Children chased pigeons. Strangers smiled at one another. And for the first time in years, she let herself just stop and take it in. Her phone buzzed. A text from Naomi. "You ready for DC next week? Senate wants your testimony." Then a second message. "Be honest. Be bold. Be Maya." She smiled. "I will." But before she went to Washington, she had one last thing to do. At a small diner tucked between 2 brownstones in Harlem, Maya sat across from a young woman in a faded waitress uniform. Her name was Tara, 22, community college dropout, single mom, and she had just been accepted into Langford Tech's new internship program designed by Maya herself. "I don't have the experience," Tara said, eyes wide. "I've never even been in a corporate office." Maya reached across the table, smiling. "Neither had I." Tara blinked. "You mean, you were like me?" Maya nodded. "Exactly like you." And just like that, Tara sat a little straighter. Maya paid the check, left a generous tip, and stepped back out into the city. It was noisy and flawed and endlessly unfinished. But so was she. And somehow, that felt just right. The Senate Ethics Subcommittee chamber smelled of polished oak and sharpened pencils. It was colder than Maya expected, not the kind of cold that came from temperature, but the cold of old systems, of processes hardened by years of inertia. The kind of room where truth often showed up too late. But not today. Maya Williams sat at the center table, spine straight, palms open. Her navy suit was simple, crisp. No accessories, no armor. Just her voice. And the truth it carried. The hearing had been scheduled weeks in advance. And despite the flood of headlines moving on to the next scandal, the room was packed. Reporters lined the back wall. Spectators sat stiff in their seats, and at the far end, the senators watched her like they weren't quite sure what to make of this 9-year-old black woman who had taken on one of the most powerful tech firms in the country and reshaped it. The chairperson leaned forward. "Miss Williams, the record shows you were an employee of Langford Technologies when the Aegis incident occurred. You held no executive power, no legal obligation, and yet, you led the internal investigation that uncovered the misuse of artificial intelligence at the highest level of your company. Why?" Maya didn't flinch. "Because I saw what silence cost." A murmur rippled behind her. She continued, "Every system, corporate, political, technological, is made of people. And people make choices. Some choose comfort. Some choose power. I chose accountability. Not because I was brave, but because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't." The room was completely still. In a world where data decides who gets a loan, who gets paroled, who gets a job or a second chance, we can't afford hidden algorithms. We can't afford invisible hands making moral decisions with no oversight. Aegis was the kind of technology that doesn't just rewrite code, it rewrites consequences. And that should terrify us. One senator, older, with silver-rimmed glasses and a Louisiana accent, leaned forward. "Miss Williams, what would you tell someone who says ethics is slowing down innovation?" Maya paused, then smiled faintly. "I'd say innovation without ethics isn't progress. It's just chaos with better branding." That got a few nods even from those who hadn't smiled all morning. She looked around the chamber. "I didn't stop Aegis alone. I had allies. a CEO willing to listen, a team willing to act. But most of all, I had a choice. And I made the right one. Vac. She leaned in, her voice quieter now, but no less firm. Don't wait until someone like me has to clean up after the silence. Build systems that speak up even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient. The chairperson nodded. Thank you, Miss Williams. That will be all. Outside the Capitol building, Maya stood on the steps, wind catching her coat. Naomi was already there, arms crossed, sunglasses on, a proud smirk tugging at her mouth. You crushed it, she said. Wasn't trying to, Maya replied. Just told the truth. Naomi slipped her hands into her coat pockets. Well, DC could use more of that. From down the steps, a group of law students waved at Maya, one of them yelling, We love you, Maya. Another held up a homemade sign. Data for good. Ethics by design. Maya blinked against the sun, overwhelmed but smiling. 2 months later, back in New York, Maya stepped into her new office at Langford's ethics floor. The desk was clean, the glass walls clear. On the shelf sat the flash drive Caleb had given her, still untouched. A relic. A reminder. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. Instead, she opened a blank page. A memo. Subject, ethics first. A living code of honor. It began with a single sentence. Every decision starts with a question. Will this make someone invisible or someone seen? She kept typing. Outside, the company buzzed as usual startups in the incubator space, engineers in testing labs, interns navigating the espresso machine with varying degrees of disaster. But here, in this space, she was building something rarer than code. She was building a culture, one where the janitor's voice mattered as much as the coder's. Where doing the right thing wasn't a memo, it was a habit. Where power reported to principle, not the other way around. And where young women like Tara could walk through the front doors and feel like they didn't have to leave part of themselves behind to be taken seriously. Maya leaned back, took a breath, and smiled. It had started with a whisper in a restaurant. A voice that had said, Sir, you need to leave, now. That voice had changed everything. And now? Now it was echoing, louder than ever, because Maya Williams was no longer a shadow in someone else's company. She was the architect of its conscience. The story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. This story reminds us that integrity isn't defined by status, but by courage. Maya Williams, a young woman with no title or power, stood against a billion-dollar machine not for glory, but for truth. Her journey proves that speaking up in the face of injustice may come at a cost, but silence costs far more. In a world driven by speed and ambition, ethics must be our anchor. Because real progress doesn't erase accountability, it demands it.